Welcome in, everyone, to the Batflip Podcast. My name is Damian here with David. Today, we are going to break down the rest of the League Championship Series and then look ahead to the World Series matchup, break that down, and give our predictions. But before we get to all that, David, how you doing this week?
I'm doing all right. The last week I had a lot of emotions. I think for an a championship series set that did not involve me whatsoever and my team. This Rangers Astros series. We're gonna get to talking about it here in a little bit, but man, I would say I was almost genuinely enthralled by a championship series that afforded a ton of drama uh, in a postseason that's been lacking drama for the better part of it so far. So, um, yeah, a lot of emotional investment on that one, but I'm very happy with the result. We'll get into it here in a little bit. How you doing now that your team's been kind of knocked out of it?
You know, that part that part of kind of got passed over this definitely the last week or so, but um, man, it's just been a really hectic week over here. Just stupid busy, just got a lot of things on the go. Um, just not had a lot of downtime to relax. Been in and these playoff games have been absolutely wild and electric to keep me on my toes while I do have some downtime here. But overall, it's fun. I'm glad that we're getting into the time where the off season's kind of in reach, especially since our teams are out of it. Off season's one of my favorite times of the year, with just everything going around. So can't wait to talk about that. But um, first off, you guys will notice that Matt is not with us this week. He was on a vacation. Actually, think he's on his way home today, but just wasn't able to line up to be a part of our recording today. But we do have his prediction, so we'll give that to you guys here in a little bit. But want to mention that he's not here. Um, but let's go ahead and jump to before we get to the playoff series, the LCSs, and then looking ahead to the World Series. We did talk a lot about the dysfunction within the Padres front office to manager to the entire organization, really. And then we kind of mentioned that report had come out that Bob Melvin and AJ Preller were both staying on um, for this next season, and they were going to move forward with each other. Well, then kind of inklings had kind of come up recently that that might not be the case. And then today, officially, it was announced that Bob Melvin is going to become the new manager of the San Francisco Giants. Signed I believe, 4-year contract or 3-year contract for that. Um, Heads back to the Bay Area. He had spent a lot of his time up there in Oakland with the A's. Heads back to the Bay Area. Gets back with Farhan Zaidi, who he knows very well from his Oakland A's days as well. And for a guy who was under contract, the Padres gave them permission to interview him, and there's no compensation going back the other way. So basically, the Padres just let him walk out the door for nothing and to become a new manager of the San Francisco Giants. So an in division manager change, which is going to be pretty interesting. What are your thoughts on this, David?
Yeah, so Bob Melvin's got a pretty solid reputation, at least seemingly in this kind of major league circle, of being this really desirable manager and kind of out managing the roster that he has. And he was with Oakland there for a little bit, making the playoffs. But Bob Melvin's a manager that hasn't gotten his team into the World Series at any point. And it's been pretty clear, at least from this past season, that given adversity, Bob Melvin teams don't typically, uh, you know, come back from that kind of big, kick in the pants type of bad luck and bad sequencing and all that stuff. So, he's a good manager, but I don't know if he's the kind of game changing manager that, Farhan Saidi's staking his entire claim to this Giants, team to, because, you've got a Giants team that underwhelmed this year, got older, and does not have a ton of really good prospects coming immediately. Maybe Marco Luciano here at some point, and Kyle Harrison's pretty good, but this isn't a team budding with those superstar top 20 prospect players. And this is a team with a lot of free agent money, but over these next 3 years and maybe even as early as next year, if the Giants don't turn things around to some degree, where we've seen big free agents spurn them. If they don't turn things around to some degree, I think Farhan Zaidi's job is going to be on the line, and he's chosen Bob Melvin as his manager, which means Bob Melvin's jobs will be on the line pretty quickly. So this is the situation where I could see the Giants being in on a lot of the free agents and a lot of the trade rumors and stuff, but the the Bob Melvin move here is very much trying to fix something that really wasn't all that broken with Gabe Kapler, and I don't know that it's going to be a step forward. It might be a lateral step. It feels like a step down to me from the younger, more analytically driven manager to the Bob Melvin who's going to try to manage. You know, he hasn't been able to prove that he can manage some egos, but he's kind of more of an old school guy, and we'll see what happens here. But I think the Giants may be stepping into some territory of danger here going forward.
Yeah, to me, what I think the situation is that Bob Melvin is going back to a place where obviously we knew that there wasn't a lot of comfortability in the Padres front office system. Going back to a guy he's really comfortable working with, working under, and that knows how he operates. In Farhan Zaidi, and then Farhan, he worked with Gabe Kapler in the Dodger system, but not as a manager. So maybe he's figured out, the way that Gabe Kapler managers, maybe there was something there that wasn't really right. And he's going back to a guy who he knows very well and how he manages and how he works with the front office in Bob Melvin, especially in this time, like you just mentioned. It's going to be a transition year or two for the Giants. There's no more Buster Posey. They lost Brendan Belt this last year. Brandon Crawford's pretty much probably gone. Um, their veteran stake that they've had in that locker room for a long time is gone. And you bring in a calming head of Bob Melvin and help him or allow him to help develop some of your younger players and kind of just get the best out of what he has there and try and get out of the kind of drama filled, situation that had been happening in San Diego. I think it could be solid. I think they're going to be aggressive on some free agents. I think we saw them last year. They were in on Aaron Judge to the end. They didn't get him. They made some other big offers to the shortstops. Carlos Correa was supposed to sign there. That whole deal happened. So, I think they'll be aggressive enough. They're obviously, I don't think they're going to come in as a favorite, but I think it's just more of a calming presence with Bob Melvin there, and getting with somebody you've worked with before and that you're in a transition area for. So we'll see how it ends up working out. I think the more interesting part is that the Padres just let him walk without any compensation to a division rival. That's a pretty interesting move there. And AJ Preller's on what I say the other day is seventh full-time or seventh manager in the last 9 seasons or something. If you count
Sheesh.
the interim
Yep.
managers that they hired there and interviewed for the full-time jobs. So that's going to be interesting as well. But anyways, let's get back to the meat and potatoes of this episode. Let's go ahead and start talking about these league championship series matchups. So we'll start over in the American League. Last time we talked to you, the Texas Rangers had a 2-0 lead, won both games in Houston. We're heading home for 3 games. We figured they have to take at least 1 and maybe 2 there and close it out in home, right? Well, that's wrong. Houston took every game in Texas. That first one, game 4, game 3, was the Max Scherzer game where he came back, had a really kind of rough start. The first couple innings, he looked okay. Third inning, I think, is when they really kind of jumped onto him. Houston kind of took advantage of that one and just went ahead to win that one 8-5. Christian Javier looked really, really good in that game. Game 4, Houston won that one 10-3, and they got 3 runs in the first inning off of Andrew Heaney, and then they brought Dane Dunning in for 2 2/3 innings. He gave up 3 runs as well, and basically just immediately took that Texas crowd out of it. It was 7-1 in the 4th inning. Texas just really had no shot on that one. And then game 5 is kind of where this series got really interesting. At this point it's 2-2. It's been a close fought series most of the way. Houston takes a 1-run lead in the first inning off of Jordan Montgomery. And then basically both pitchers, Verlander was pitching this game as well. Both pitchers went scoreless until the 5th inning where Verlander gave up 1 to Texas. Houston went ahead and scored 1 in the 6th. And then Texas got 3 big runs in the 6th inning, I believe. The big shot there was the Adolis Garcia homer, if I'm not mistaken,
Yep, that
where
was it.
he really bat flipped it, showed a lot of emotion on that one. And then when it was bottom of the eighth, I think it was when he
It
came
was.
back up the next time, and Brian Abreu, I think his first pitch hit him with the fastball up and in. We can talk all day if it was intentional or not. I don't think it's intentional in that area, but it basically set off benches clearing brawls, or not brawls really, but benches clearing. Brian Abreu got kicked out of the game, and Adolis Garcia got kicked out of the game, and Dusty Baker got kicked out of the game there. And then in the ninth inning, Jose Altuve hit a 3-run homer off of Jose Leclerc to give Texas a 5-4 lead in that one, and basically kind of steal that game and shock that Texas crowd. So Houston went into Texas, took all 3 there, and then we headed back to Houston, with them just looking to win one and close it out in front of their home fans. And then in Game 6, it was really close until the ninth inning. I think it was Houston scored 1 in the first, Texas scored 1 in the second. They scored 2 in the fourth, so 3-2 or 3-1 at that point. Houston got one back, it was 3-2, and then Texas kind of scored 1 in the eighth and 5 in the ninth to really pull away and win that one 9-2. And then Game 7, they came out and Texas just jumped on Christian Javier right away, 3 runs in the first inning, and it really from that point kind of just felt over. Felt like the Houston crowd was out of it, and then Houston scored a couple runs there to bring it to 4-2 at one point, and then in the fourth inning, Texas scored 4 more to make it 7-2, and or 8-2, sorry, and just that was the final dagger there. So Texas went into Houston, won the final 2 games, moved on to the thing. No team in this series won a home game, which I found rather interesting, but an overall just incredible series. Both sides had their ups and downs. We had energy, we had brawl, we had teams disliking each other in there, and just overall craziness. So what was your kind of outlook, takeaway, everything from this series, David?
So first of all, I think congrats to the Rangers, right? I mean, this is a team that we've discussed at length for being heavily involved in free agency, heavily involved on the trade market, right? I mean, a lot of their heroes in this series were guys they've traded for. Beyond Adolis Garcia, I mean, you had Corey Seager, who was a big time free agent signing. They had Aroldis Chapman pitching a bunch, which he was traded this year, and then Jordan Montgomery, who probably could have won the series MVP if Adolis Garcia doesn't put together 15 RBI on the series. It's Jordan Montgomery comes in and pitches Game 7 and keeps Houston at bay while the Texas offense continues to extend the lead on like 3 days rest or something. I think that was really impressive, and just a lot of grit from a guy who's going into free agency next year. Right. I mean, Montgomery also had turned in really good starts in this postseason as well. But even especially, in this league championship series, I think he was yeah, I mean, for over 14 innings pitched, he had a 1.29 ERA. He was just really impressive. And, you know, overall, I think, Texas looked like the better team throughout the better part of this series. And, it felt like they could have won 5 games out of the 7, if not for the one Altuve late home run. Right. So, um, you know, we can get into the rest of it here in a little bit, but just as a series in general, I mean, Texas definitely brought it. They'll get a chance to avenge the 2011 Texas Rangers, who are the last team to have been to the World Series for this group, and that's a team that's never won a World Series, so it'd be pretty cool to see them win it. But yeah, I mean, just a fantastic series. The ability to fight and go get 2 wins by a combined run differential of what is that, 7 and then 7's 14 run differential in the last 2 games of the Astros season, just to put away a team that's kind of notorious for bending the rules and for doing this kind of thing, getting butthurt about, the league not respecting them and favoring the other team and stuff. I mean, that report came out too, and it was just a lot of people dunking on the Astros this week, and ultimately it feels pretty good. But I will say he's getting he's getting to be there. Is that Jose Altuve is getting really close to being the best postseason hitter of all time. Um, he's about to take the lead on Manny Ramirez in home runs in the postseason, which is wild. He's like got 26 or 27 now, and Manny Ramirez is 29, and that's the career leader. So
He has 27 postseason
yeah,
homers.
so he got to that in Game 5, hitting the one. So um, just yeah, Altuve is going to be that dude. I think that you've always got to beat. He's going to be able to have that kind of in his back pocket. But it was kind of nice to see the Rangers, who are kind of the more fan favorite team here, go out and take this one after the circumstances of Game 5.
Yeah, I think most of America probably wanted Texas to win the series. But jumping back to the Jose Altuve kind of just playoff performer status so far, his career WRC plus is 130. His playoff WRC plus 130. It's identical.
He's the same
Um,
dude.
yeah. The stat lines look a little different. 307 career, 273 hitter in the postseason, and then on base is kind of close. He slugs more in the postseason, as we're kind of saying there. But yeah, the overall value is exactly the same as what he is in his career regular season to playoffs, which in something especially he's had 103 games, so he's played a lot of postseason games. But you see a lot of rhetoric a lot of the time about, is this guy a postseason performer? Is he not? Jose Altuve is just Jose Altuve. He doesn't go one way or the other
Yeah.
during the postseason. He's just exactly the player he always is, which is really, really difficult to do. So congrats to the Texas Rangers for going ahead and knocking the Houston Astros out. Everyone is celebrating, especially me. So but one piece of news that we did have with the end of the Astros season here was that Dusty Baker, I guess he's technically going to announce it tomorrow, but it's basically come out that he is going to retire from managing after, I believe, this was his 26th season as a full-time manager, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 26 MLB seasons he managed. So he will be retiring. So Houston will be looking for their new manager. We had the AJ Hinch situation, and then you got Dusty Baker in there, kind of righted the ship, kind of was that even keeled leader. So it's going to be interesting to see where they go if they stick in house, which I think they still have Joe Espada. Is he still their bench coach, or did he leave?
I think he is. I think he
Um,
might just be the guy in waiting.
yeah, so most likely I would say that's that, but though we'll see. You never know what happens if they do a full-on interview process from there. So congrats to Dusty Baker on a good career. I know, David, you aren't the biggest fan, but 26 seasons of managing, I mean, that's an accomplishment at least. So
Yeah, he's been around forever. That is indeed something that he has done. But he's definitely not quite as he's not quite as bad as he used to be with regards to pitcher arm safety and other things that I dislike him for. But he has adapted to the times and shown that he can provide be a good manager, and he's going to go to the Hall of Fame for sure. Yeah, as much to my chagrin, he'll be there.
yeah, so let's go ahead and jump over to the
You know what? Why don't we step back though, real quick?
Okay.
I do want to get into the suspension a little bit. You mentioned you thought it was unintentional. The league did suspend Brian Abreu for 2 games after Game 5,
which he didn't serve in this.
which he did not serve in either Game 6 or Game 7. It will be pushed to the beginning of next year. So the league clearly felt like this was an intentional beaning of Adolis Garcia in response to celebrating the 3-run home run in the 6th inning of Game 5. But the suspension got appealed by Abreu and the Astros and was pushed by the league to next season, allowing Brian Abreu to play in both of these games. He subsequently gave up several runs in Game 7. So I think it was intentional. It's something that it probably shouldn't have been, right? It's a bad situation. Adolis Garcia at that point there was a guy on base, right? You don't want to be beaning a guy in that scenario late in the game, and I think the Astros end up getting out of it because everybody kind of calmed down, and Ryan Presley comes in and struck out the next guy and ended the threat. But you don't want to be putting guys on base in a playoff game in the bottom of the 8th inning. I mean, it seems dumb, but it resulted in a suspension, which at the very least tells me it's a bad mistake you can't make. But then Abreu did hit Mitch Garver in Game 7. I think he had 0 hit by pitches in the regular season.
He had 3.
3, okay. Well, not 2 in 2 games in the playoffs and 3 in the regular season, and that guy throws hard too. So, if you're not doing that intentionally, which maybe he wasn't, but you can't be throwing 97 mile an hour right at guys in the postseason, right? I mean, that's irresponsible in general.
See, here's my thought on it: is that you're down 2 at home with at least Jose Altuve is coming up to the plate. Like, I don't think you intentionally hit somebody in that situation, knowing that you're going to, or sorry, you're on the road, knowing that you're going to the 9th inning with a chance to still win it. Like, the one run's already on base. You're not going to intentionally put somebody else up on base that they can, if one gets out there, then they immediately have, I think it would be a 5-run lead at that point. I just don't think you do that. Do I think that maybe he was trying to send a fastball inside to kind of right off the plate, kind of send a message? I think maybe that's what you're looking at here. I don't think he intentionally goes out there and says, I'm going to hit the guy. But also at the same time, it's the playoffs. We all know the energy that's surrounding the playoffs anyways. And we see this all the time with players hit a bit in a big moment, you get a big homer, right? Like, people are going to bat flip. They're going to bring the energy. They're going to do this stuff. Like, especially he was at home.
Yeah. And it's Adolis Garcia, who's already a flashy type player.
Right. That's why I think he probably did it in that aspect of, hey, I'm going to send him inside, and that's why I don't think it was intentional.
Sure.
Just in the aspect of what you have going on there. Now, was it the right move? No. But also we see these guys with high velocity nowadays, and sometimes they're just super wild and they don't know where it goes.
Right.
So I don't know. I think the one problem that I do have is if MLB did feel like it was enough for a suspension, then you make him serve the suspension at this time.
Yep.
Pushing the suspension off to the regular season does absolutely nothing. Oh my God, he's not going to throw until the 3rd game of the season. Whoopee.
They might not need him.
Yeah, it literally means nothing at that point.
He's a reliever, yeah.
Now if he misses in the playoffs and say they're winning those games and now they don't have one of their best relievers, then at that point, what are you doing?
Right.
You know what I mean? At that point, it might be a problem. So that's the only issue I have with the whole, if the suspension thing, like if MLB did feel it was suspension worthy, which obviously they did, then you make him serve it in the playoffs because you committed the penalty in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like that's my problem.
Hey, I completely agree with that. I will say that my one counterpoint is that if you're going to hit somebody, you're not thinking rationally, because putting somebody on base for free is dumb, right? We've said that, right? Putting a guy on base in the 8th inning of a game, you only have 6 more outs to get. And I think at that point there was 1 or 2 outs in the inning. You only have 4 or 5 more outs to get in the whole game. Right, like you need to get as many outs as you can right now. Worry about Adolis Garcia later, right? You can't be thinking about that. But if that's on their mind, they're not thinking rationally at all anyway. So
the thing is they were already down, so it wasn't even like they had 5 more outs. They literally had that inning.
Yeah,
because they didn't know if they were going to come up with the 9th.
Right.
So
and the resultant of Adolis Garcia kind of taking exception to the hit by pitch was Jose Leclerc, who got the last out of the last inning, had to sit for 15 minutes, came out cold, and then gave up to a walk, I think, and then a single, and then a home run, right? So he obviously was affected by it, and I think that's the only runs Leclerc's given up in the playoffs so far, right? He's been really dominant, except for that inning coming off of a 15-minute brawl. So it's what made this series really entertaining for me. I thought this was kind of the moment, and then Adolis obviously gets him back in the Game 7 when he puts together a bunch of runs. He ends up with the NLCS MVP or ALCS MVP, which I think is well deserved. I mean, 15 home runs. He had a 893 slugging percentage. 5 home runs in this series. Adolis was a monster at the plate, and I just want to note one more time, he was traded from the Cardinals to the Rangers a few years ago. So that's a good one. That feels good.
Well, he was DFA'd first and then
Yeah.
traded. And then did you see the sorry, not to get too far off topic here, but did you see the Cardinals reporter trying to like make it seem not as bad because the Ranger he didn't like make camp with the Rangers either. So
Yeah,
they
he
like
did get DFA'd.
DFA'd him.
He did get DFA'd by the Rangers, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they've a lot of people missed on Adolis Garcia for a long time there, but I'm really glad he's
Yeah.
gotten that opportunity. And we've talked about him a lot this year. He's made the All-Star team. He almost hit 40 home runs, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the last couple of years he's been volatile. This year he was really consistently good and shows some major plate improvement, plate discipline improvements. So, this is a guy I think I trust going forward to kind of maintain this stardom.
Yeah. So now let's go ahead and jump over to the National League side. When we were recording last time, Philly had won game one. They were up big in game two. It ended up being 10-0. They really just ran away with that one there. And then game three, which I think we all expected to be a like a duel of the offenses coming in. Ranger Suarez and Brandon Pfaadt just basically shut each other's offenses down. Brandon Pfaadt threw 5 2/3, 2 hits, scoreless, 9 strikeouts. Ranger Suarez threw 5 1/3, 3 hits, 0 runs, 7 strikeouts. He walked one within there too. But this game was really, really close. It was fun. The Phillies got 1 run in the 7th. And then the Diamondbacks turned around and got one right back in the bottom of the 7th. And it was just tick for tat that entire time. Both teams had some opportunities late in the game, but it ended up being a how'd they end up doing this? It was on a Ketel Marte single to center field off of Craig Kimbrell is how they the Diamondbacks ended up walking off this game and ended up winning game 3 2-1. No, yeah, 2-1. There in front of the home crowd at Chase Field. And then we go to game 4, and you have Arizona got a lead in this, or got lead scoring in the second, and then one in the third as well. Philly comes back in the 4th, gets 1, 5th gets 1, 6th get 2, 7th get 1. So really kind of took that commanding lead. I think it was 5-2 at the time. Arizona got 1 back in the bottom of the 7th, make it 5-3. And then in the bottom of the 8th, Arizona was able to score 3 off of Craig Kimbrell again. He came back in, was really wild. Couldn't really find the strike zone, gave up 3 there. I believe one of those was an Alek Thomas homer, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe you're right.
Oh, his was in the 8th. Yeah, was one of those 3 runs there. And then so that gave Diamondbacks a 6-5 lead. Paul Sewald came in, closed it out. So Arizona took that game 5-6. So now the series was tied at 2. Game 5 was in Arizona again. Philly took 2 in the first inning, 2 in the 6th. Arizona got 1 in the 7th, and then Philly just came back, got 2 in the 8th. Took this one 6-1. It was kind of a commanding win. Zach Wheeler was his typical Zach Wheeler self here in the playoffs. Gallen kind of struggled initially on that first inning, but settled back into what we expect from Zach Gallen. But Phillies won this game 6-1, heading back to Philadelphia up 3-2, just needing 1 there. And then we got the notorious Chris Mad Dog Russo saying, hey, if Arizona wins both games, I'm going to retire on the spot. Well, Arizona went into Philadelphia game 6, got 3 runs in the second inning, took the lead there. Philly got 1 in the second. Arizona came back, scored 1 in the 5th, 1 in the 7th, 1-5-1. Kind of really felt like Philly didn't really have a chance, especially after those 3 runs there. It was just, I don't know, their offense just kind of seemed a little bit off, especially once they got back to Philly there. And then game 7 was a really, really fun game to watch last night. Arizona got 1 immediately in the first. That was off of, was that Carroll? Was that the Carroll one?
Carroll got on base, I think stole second, and then got...
That was the Christian Walker ground out.
Yep, got singled over to third, and then got grounded in.
Yeah, and then Philly got 1 in the second, and then they got 1 in the 4th. We're up at that point, but Arizona came back, got 2 in the 5th, to take a 3-2 lead, and then one in the seventh, and they just basically shut Philly down. I mean, they had a couple opportunities there, but nobody was able to come through with that big hit. I think the best opportunity was in the seventh. They had two guys on. Bryce Harper came up, and he just missed one. I think he hit like 107.6 miles an hour or something. Ended up being like a fly ball left center field. I guess that was the second one. He came up, I think it was in the
I want
fourth
to
or
say
the
it was the
fifth.
fourth inning.
Yeah,
Phillies
the
were
fourth
ahead.
inning.
Phillies had just scored the run. I think Real
Yeah,
Muto
to
hit an RBI single, and
put
the
them ahead.
yeah,
Yeah.
and Harper comes up and hits. It looked like it was like a cutter or something inside, and Harper almost inside outed it out of the park,
Yeah.
which would have been a masterful feat. I genuinely thought he hit it out. And Gurriel caught it like a foot in front of the wall,
Yeah.
and that I felt like was it almost felt like the air kind of came out of the Phillies offense there, right? I mean, they were getting guys on base, very aggressive, plate approach, a lot of big swings. The Harper hits a deep fly ball. Everybody kind of thinks it's gone and it settles harmlessly into a glove. And I don't know that they were really that much of a threat the rest of the way.
Yeah. Like I said, the only other opportunity you really felt was in the seventh inning. When they got some people on there, and then Harper just missed that other one. It was a hard hit fly ball. But yeah, at that point, it just felt like Philly was taken out of it, and their at bats kind of seemed like it. Paul Sewald came in, or Kevin Ginkel. First of all, Kevin Ginkel
Oh
this
my goodness.
playoff has been insane. What he came in, he was the one that got the out to Harper in the seventh inning, which one of those pitches, like he fooled Harper so bad because of the breaking stuff he had. There was like a 96-mile-an-hour fastball right down the middle that like is a typical Bryce Harper, like hit the ball almost out of the stadium type pitch, and Harper just watched it. That's how nasty Ginkel was. And then he came out in the eighth and just mowed them down right away too. And then the ninth, Paul Sewald was his normal self, was just really dang good. And Philly goes back to Philadelphia, or Arizona goes back to Philly down 2 games and takes both of those games in Philadelphia to beat the Phillies, knock them out, and continue their kind of Cinderella run to the World Series. An 84-win team went ahead, knocked out the Brewers, went and swept the Dodgers, and then now, when everyone thought they were dead to Philly, went back in, took the 2 there. Beat the Phillies, and now we're on to the World Series. So your World Series matchup will be the Texas Rangers against the Arizona Diamondbacks. So pretty electric series this one was, and a pretty fun series that we're going to look forward to. But David, what was your thoughts on the NLCS altogether?
Altogether, this shows the nuances of two different playing styles, right? I mean, you've got an Arizona team that has one dominant starter, one good starter, and that's a rookie essentially in Brandon Pfaadt, who's got some good stuff, but he's very much a rookie, and a bullpen extremely well put together. And you've got Philadelphia with ace, and then strong starter in Ranger Suarez, right? I mean, the Philly team is very well put together. A lot of playoff veterans, right? I mean, Kyle Schwarber hit 5 home runs in this series. Bringing him to the number 1 left-handed hitter all time in the playoffs in home runs, bypassing David Ortiz. So, this is a juxtaposition of how to play baseball, right? I mean, you've got a team who's kind of scrapped together, clawed together, no name guys, right? I mean, I think before the wild card round, I hadn't even heard Kevin Ginkel's name. And now he's like pretty clearly, obviously a really good reliever. And they've got a bunch of guys like that, right? I mean, they've got Thompson, Mantiply, Paul Sewald, who is a guy who's pretty, notoriously strong. And he's a guy who throws 93, but he throws it from such a strange arm slot that he gets a lot of carry on that pitch, gets a lot of extension, and is able to make that thing look like it's 97, 98 and blow it by guys. That they were fairly untouchable once the starting rotation, left the game. And that's what you have to do to win in Major League Baseball's playoffs, right? I mean, you have to have guys who miss the bats. And, the Philadelphia offense is entirely home run driven. They didn't really string a whole lot of hits together. It required, Alec Boehm or, what's the other guy's name? Bryson Stott to be kind of getting runs home, and those guys really went cold in this series, right? I mean, they were really fiery and carrying the offense in that Atlanta series, and they weren't really on in this series, right? I mean, Bryce Harper did Bryce Harper things. Kyle Schwarber hit 5 home runs, but ultimately, the big high octane offense falls short to the Kettle Marte, 16 game hit streak in the playoffs, where he's just consistently, hitting the ball in play. Corbin Carroll was really, really good in this series as well. He put together, I think, a 3-for-3 night in Game 7. So, this Diamondbacks team just plays consistent baseball. I saw them, I think, 2 times in September against the Cubs, and they went 5-1 against the Cubs. I mean, this was a team we kind of saw in there, and we were like, man, they're really annoying. The offense just never seems to die, and it's one of those things where even when they don't really have too many big stars, and that kind of, I think, enables them to, everyone, it finds a way to get the job done in that moment, right? It doesn't matter if it's Gabriel Moreno, who's like 23 years old, or Corbin Carroll, who is 23 years old, or Christian Walker, who's over 30. Like, they get the job done. So it's, two different styles of baseball, and Diamondback style wins this time. Last year it was the Phillies that went to the World Series. So yeah, I mean, that's my takeaway from this, is that you can kind of be an 84 win team. You just have to get into the tournament, and you've got a chance if your bullpen comes together, if your offense just remains consistent, doesn't fall into big slumps like Nick Castellanos, who disappeared for the series, then you're golden.
Yeah, it's just kind of hard to predict those type of things.
Right.
That's one of the big majority of things. I think that the takeaway that I take from this series is that um, the Diamondbacks are one of those teams that you have to watch out for the next 5 to 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
They have really, really good young players, and we knew this was coming. We knew they had Corbin Carroll down there. We knew Zach Gallen was really good. We knew they had guys like Brandon Pfaadt, and it was just like, when are they going to put it together? I think everyone thought this was probably a year, maybe 2 years, kind of too early. Like, we thought Carroll was going to come in and be an impact player. I don't think we thought he was going to be as good as he was right away.
I predicted
right?
him for MVP. I don't speak for yourself.
Listen, most people. And even then, like, coming into the playoffs, like, Brandon Pfaadt hadn't pitched much this year, hadn't looked really good. We were really wondering what that starting rotation was going to look like here, outside of Gallen and Merrill Kelly. The bullpen had its spotty moments before. Andrew Saalfrank has thrown almost as many postseason games as he had regular season games in his career this year. Like, it's, they're just finding these guys, to come here and be a part of this, kind of long-term type thing. You have Ketel Marte signed. Alek Thomas had some big moments in this playoffs. He has been a guy who had struggled so far through his career. I think he hit 2 big homers in this series. Gabriel Moreno is showing exactly what he could be. I think at one point he was moved up to third in their lineup, like, and defensively what he's able to do. I think who did he throw out? It was just an insane throw. I think it was Bryson Stott. It was like a pass, like almost a pass ball that kind of bounced like to his left by like 6 feet. He picked it up and gunned him out at second. Like, just insane defensive stuff there. Like, this team is going to be really good. And the thing too is they don't really have much big contracts on the books. Like, they could still be super aggressive and go get a big time player or two. And they've shown that they'll be willing to sign people. I mean, they signed Zach Greinke, they signed Madison Bumgarner. The Bumgarner contract didn't really work, but they've shown the willingness to sign big players to these contracts when needed. That's my big thing, is like, I think we're seeing the Diamondbacks break out a year earlier than most people thought.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like a comparison. Maybe the 2015 Cubs that kind of suddenly won 97 games and then kind of accelerated to the World Series next year. But if you remember, that was a team that lost the NLCS because the other team had, a Daniel Murphy who hit like 9 home runs in the series or something. The Phillies had Schwarber hit 5, but they were 5 solo home runs, right? I mean, he wasn't able to capitalize on that power surge. And The Phillies weren't able to put this little scrappy Diamondbacks team away, and I think that might be like the difference between, you know, the spot where they are. I mean, I think this Diamondbacks team could definitely make some moves, and they're running up against a bit of a juggernaut, right? I mean, this Rangers team is kind of meant business from the beginning of the playoffs, and um, looking forward here to the
Yeah.
World Series matchup, I'm looking forward to it because I think the Rangers had to fight a lot to get through
Mhm.
Houston. They pitched Jordan Montgomery in Game 7. The Diamondbacks, they've shown willingness to go to the bullpen for bullpen games, right? I mean, they're a team
Yeah.
that doesn't have four starters that they're comfortable with. The Rangers have two starters that they're extremely comfortable with, and then it's kind of, well, it's is Max Scherzer healthy enough? They're willing to throw Jordan Montgomery in the bullpen, but now is Jordan Montgomery going to suffer from that? On this next start in the World Series, who knows, right? So it's going to be very interesting going forward. I guess I'll ask a question of you here. Who would be your pick between either of these teams? So one for each team to win World Series MVP, to have the Adolis Garcia or Ketel Marte run in the series here.
It's funny you asked this because I was thinking about this today, knowing that we were going to record this episode tonight. And I was going to come up with this question to you here in just a little bit, actually. But, um, you know, I don't think from Arizona anyone's going to really pop out and surprise you. I think if this Arizona team's going to win, it's going to be on the backs of Corbin Carroll or Ketel Marte. Um, I, Lourdes Gurriel is going to have solid games. Gabriel Moreno's going to have a hit, a solid hit at some point. Alec Thomas can have a big game here, but really, it's the top two in this lineup are the main two. If you shut those guys down, um, that's really where it's going to come from. Now, Christian Walker has really struggled, and I might be underrating what he's able to do to pop out from at any given time. He's a super powerful hitter, but if I had to pick one guy that's going to have that impact, I think it's going to be probably Corbin Carroll. I just think his all around game, if from the Diamondbacks at least, his all around game is going to allow him to do some other some other things here. Like he wasn't able to really steal in this series. That's because you had JT Realmuto behind the plate, right? You're going to have Jonah Heim, who's also another really good catcher. But I think these pitchers that you're going to face in Texas are a little slower to the plate. Like Nathan Eovaldi has that little kind of hitch in his delivery there. Montgomery's pretty solid, which is lefty. You really won't see much stealing there. But people have shown the ability to steal off Max Scherzer too. And like Aroldis Chapman, Jose Leclerc, if you're getting into those, you can steal on those guys. That's where I think Carroll's going to be able to make more of a ruckus is on the base paths. If you're coming from Texas's side, I really wanted to pick Evan Carter. I really
I
did.
know.
But I just don't think that he has the power output yet. I don't think he's come into that, especially going against a Gallen or a Merrill Kelly right away. I think he'll have a good series, but if I had to pick one kind of under the radar type guy that I think could have a really big impact on this series and really flip it, I think it's going to be Nate Lowe. They don't have a lefty outside of Andrew Saalfrank. That's Nate Lowe he crushes righties, but his struggles against lefties, right? They don't have a lefty. It's Andrew Saalfrank, and that's it. And he had a couple good at bats late in that game. I think he was one of the ones that hit the homer off Brian Abreu in the Game 7 there. I think Nate Lowe is really underrated. He struggled most of this season. If there's a guy on Texas that is able to be under the radar and not picking the easy, Adolis Garcia or Corey Seager, which we've seen Corey Seager do things in the World Series before at this stadium, at Texas Stadium. Like we've seen that. I can attest to that. But I think those are two obvious picks, and I kind of went an obvious one, Corbin Carroll. So I would say Corbin Carroll or Nate Lowe would be my two from those to get it. But
I like it.
Throw that. Let's use a trampoline effect here and bounce the question right back to you.
Yeah, so I'm gonna. I had also had to think about this while while you're giving your answers, which I believe are very good. I was actually debating Nate Lowe myself. It's fine that you didn't take it because I wanted to roll a different way with Texas, which was, in terms of breaking out, I think Marcus Simeon is extremely due. He's been pretty bad this postseason, but this is a guy who is very, very streaky. He's the kind of hitter that can be 0 for 4 5 games in a row, and then the next 3 games he'll have 3 hits each game, right? I'm waiting for the Marcus Simeon breakout, and what better place to do it than on the biggest stage? I think this is his first time in the World Series. He's definitely
Right.
postseason seasoned, but he's not been on the World Series stage yet. And I think this is the perfect time for Marcus Simeon to, show up out of that leadoff spot, kind of give the Kyle Schwarber effect to this Texas lineup and galvanize it from the top. And it may not be via homers. Simeon's a very powerful hitter, but he's also got a very strong plate approach, and I think he's had the right plate approach for a good bit of the offseason here, or for the postseason here, but it's not translated into a ton of success yet, right? He's not striking out. So I think you're going to see him get a little bit more batted ball luck, hit some extra base hits here, maybe a couple of homers, and he might be able to pick it up if Texas rolls in this series. My pick for Arizona, it is sort of obvious, but it's not. It's Gabriel Moreno. If Arizona wins this, I think it won't be because their normal guys are good, right? I think Corbin Carroll is going to get on base and wreak some havoc. Ketel Marte is going to be solid. It's going to be if Gabriel Moreno or someone equivalent, but I'm thinking Moreno because he's been really good this postseason, right? He's got a 130 WRC plus. If Gabriel Moreno comes out and plays that electric catcher defense that we've seen on display, and couples that with a couple of key hits, including maybe a homer or two, I mean, he could easily take home, World Series MVP and galvanize this Diamondbacks offense. I actually think Jonah Heim was my maybe third option here, was that because Jonah Heim has been a very, very good hitter with like runners on base this season for the Rangers. And so if the catchers have a big enough impact on this series, a couple of relatively unknown catchers in Heim and Moreno, they could be really making a name for themselves in a catcher position in Major League Baseball. It's kind of void of true superstars at this point because a lot of the kind of incumbent best catchers of guys have kind of left, and Romuto's aging and he's not obviously in it anymore. And I think there's some names to be made here between Heim, Moreno, and then obviously I think Simeon can get back to it. So those are my guys. And that's barring like an Eovaldi or a Montgomery or a
Right.
Gallen going out and getting 3 shutdown games.
Yeah. All right. So I wanted to do. I mean, we're doing these previews all the time, right? And it's really hard when we have so many to kind of do an in-depth kind of breakdown that way. So now that it's the World Series, I kind of want to break this down by position group or by, let's say kind of position group, right? So let's start with the starting rotation. All right. Between these two teams, which starting rotation would you rather have?
Texas.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I am on that same way with Texas. I think Nathan Eovaldi, Jordan Montgomery, and the potential of Max Scherzer is just right now. It just oversees what Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, and then Brandon Pfaadt it can do at this moment. And then I think the ability to have, if it's Andrew Heaney or if it's Dane Dunning, I think that fourth option is. I don't even think Arizona has that fourth option at the moment.
Right. They're throwing a bullpen game.
Right. At least Texas has the ability to have that fourth guy there. I really, really like that ability from it. So I also lean for Texas. So right now we're going to say 1-0 Texas, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to bullpens. Which bullpen would you rather have?
I wash. I tie. Here's the thing. Arizona's bullpen is deeper, but I like Texas's setup more. Right? I like we have 3 guys. You have to beat our 3 guys. Our starter gets us to the 6th, and then we have 3 guys, and you have to beat our 3 guys. It's 2 different philosophies. But if I had to pick, I guess I'm going Arizona. It's close though. This is
if I had it out of bullpens, I think I take Arizona's bullpen. The ability to have um, Ryan Thompson, Paul Sewald, Kevin Ginkel, then the Andrew Saalfrank, and then to have a guy like Joe Mantiply even there,
Mhm.
um, who's really struggled so far, but he's shown the ability to have really good stuff at times. I think the ability to have Thompson, Sewald, Saalfrank, and then Kevin Ginkel there, and all of those guys can give you more than one inning, and we've seen them do it so far. I just think that bullpen, I think it's a lot more solid. I like Aroldis Chapman, Jose Leclerc, Josh Spores. I think he's a good story right now. He was terrible in the regular season. He's been really good in the playoffs because I think his high velocity. But I've seen Josh Spores before.
Mhm.
He's a former Dodger. Like I don't know if he keeps this up. Like
He
he is
has been
prone
he has been
to
tight roping it for sure.
yeah, he's prone to a blow up. And all of three of those guys, they're good right now, but they are prone to blow ups at any time.
Mhm.
We've seen Chapman lose the strike zone. We've seen Jose Leclerc lose the strike zone. I know personally that Josh Spores can have blow up games. Um, you have to have those three guys be on it all the time.
Yeah.
And I think if you're asking me which one would like for right now, I think it's Arizona's.
Yeah, I mean
At this point,
having
it's
a
Arizona.
bullpen 5 deep as opposed to 3
Three.
high
Yeah.
is, it's better. Even though I
Yeah.
think the upside is not as high in the Arizona bullpen, I think the stability is a lot more
Yeah.
is much more palpable.
So to me, I think it's 1-1 right now.
Yeah.
I think it's 1-1. So let's go to offensively. Which team would you rather have offensively?
Texas.
I think that's an easy one.
Yeah.
Texas is just more explosive. They have the more proven track history. They have a deeper lineup. Like they have 7 to 8 guys that can beat you at any given time. I think Arizona's is more. We have 3 to 4
Right.
that can beat you at any given time. Then we have a couple fillers in there. So I think that's easy. 2-1 Texas is what we're looking at now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now let's go defensively. Who would you rather have defensively, Texas or Arizona?
This is the tougher one because Corey Seager's defense is rating pretty well right now at shortstop, right? And I'm genuinely asking. I'm not sure. And then
Yes,
you've got
it's rated pretty well.
and then you've got what, Geraldo Perdomo playing shortstop. I can't remember who's playing
Yes,
shortstop for
Geraldo
the. Yeah,
Perdomo.
it's Perdomo playing shortstop for the Diamondbacks, who's I think a third baseman by trade. Gurriel's playing the field for Arizona. Christian
Mm-hmm.
Walker's maybe the best first baseman in the business, but how much impact is that?
Mm-hmm.
Moreno and Heim are both really good defensive catchers. Leota Taveras is really good in center field. You know, I'm going to go Texas, but it's close. And it's not, the defense is not going to be the impact that we like of all of the things we've mentioned so far. This is number 4 of impact to this series, I think, from these two teams.
See, I think it's Texas by a decent margin here. Catcher's really close. First base is Arizona, but Nate Lowe is an underrated defender himself.
And first base
Marcus Semien,
defense.
yeah, Marcus Semien is a elite defensive second baseman.
Right.
Yeah, Corey Seager, who is from watching Corey Seager all the time to watching what he's doing now, he's playing like night and day difference, like higher level defense than he's ever played before. Josh Jung is really underrated defensively at third base too. Like some of the plays he's made, incredible.
Yep.
Evan Carter in left field,
He's very good.
like very good. Leody Taveras is very good. Adolis Garcia, he has incredible range and a strong arm. He's really good as well. I don't think there's a defensive weak spot on this team where I don't think you could say that about the Diamondbacks.
Right.
Ketel Marte has iffy defense at second base at times. Geraldo Perdomo, iffy defense at times at second base. Evan Longoria is still a really good defensive third baseman, but he doesn't even play all the games, and he gets pulled for a defensive replacement later in the games. Left field, you have Lourdes Gurriel playing left field for you.
Who is a DH?
That's not the best thing.
Yeah.
Who's a DH? Alec Thomas and Corbin Carroll, center and right field. I think
Really
those are
good.
two fantastic defenders as well. But I think Texas has this defensively by a decent margin, and I think that one of these games will come down to at least a defensive play from one of these sides, either an air from one side or a really, really good defensive stop from another side. I think it's going to be a close game in this one, and that is going to be one game that can flip the series either way. I think it might be the least impactful for 6 other games. Sure. I think one of these games is going to come down to to the defense, and I take Texas there. To me, so to me, it's 3-1
Yeah,
Arizona,
it's
Texas.
3-1 Texas. Yeah.
Okay. Now, this is a really underrated part in most postseason matchups here. So, and I think this one's gonna be a really tough one. Which manager would you rather have right now, Bruce Bochy or Torey Lovullo?
I kept forgetting that Bruce Bochy was the manager of the Rangers, and then you
Yeah.
look at the decisions that have been made for this Texas team. Other than Robbie Grossman getting some run in the 3-hole,
Now,
which
do you know why?
it's because either when they face a lefty, he walks a lot in front of Adolis.
It's not
Um,
really even about that.
well,
It's
then
really not.
what's the
It's about that Marcus Semien and Corey Seager are two very aggressive hitters, and Robbie Grossman is like second in the league in taking pitches per at bat. So why Bruce Bochy's putting Robbie Grossman in the 3 holes, because that opens up allowing Marcus Semien and Corey Seager to be aggressive early in the plate appearance and not throw another guy out of his strategy in the plate appearance by forcing him to take pitches like an Adolis Garcia. It allows Robbie Grossman to go in there, take pitches, work the pitcher a little bit more, and see more pitches at that point. So that I didn't know that either until they talked about it in one of the games there, why Robbie Grossman was there. And it makes the most sense for a Bruce Bochy type reason ever. And I think it's smart playing, because most people wouldn't do that. They would just put Adolis Garcia in the 3 hole and say, okay, go. And then you might have a pitcher throw a 3-pitch inning there, and it changes the entire landscape of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the reason that he's doing it, and it's incredible in my eyes. But just so you know the real reason why that's happening.
Sure, that makes sense to me, but at the same time, right? I mean, you've got, what if Semien and Seager both get on base, and now you've got Robbie Grossman instead of anybody else,
Well,
right?
like you said, he walks a lot.
He walks a lot, but he has not been a good hitter this year, and he hasn't been a good hitter in the playoffs either. So there's ups and downs for that, but it is a Bruce Bochy move, right? I'm taking the guy who's managed in the World Series before.
Yeah.
It's Bruce Bochy went and won, I think, 2 World Series with the Giants. Maybe it was just the one, or was it all 3?
I think it's all 3.
It was all 3. He was the manager of the Giants and won all 3 World Series. And this is a guy we've seen him be willing to throw his starting pitcher to close out an entirety of a Game 7, right? And he's already willing to bring Jordan Montgomery in a championship series Game 7 when Montgomery's still going to have to make 2 more starts. So, I trust that Bruce Bochy is going to do what it takes to get this thing completed. He's got the team playing in the right way, right? They're very energized, they're galvanized, they're comfortable. You look at, there's not a whole lot of bad plate appearances right now. It's very much feeling like a well-coached team. They didn't let the moment get the best of them when they get a back-breaking Jose Altuve home run that costs you your 2-2, your 3-2 advantage at home, right? You go to Houston, you take care of business in the last 2 games. I mean, that's the mark of a well-coached team. And Arizona's got a similar coach in Torey Lovullo, but Torey Lovullo hasn't been in this situation before, and that's what it would come down to in terms of me choosing, and I'll choose the guy who's been there before. But Torey Lovullo's shown that he can get it done, and this Diamondbacks team pretty clearly has those similar qualities of a team who's willing to do what it takes to get it done. And it's just a matter of, can he best weaponize fewer assets, because I think Bruce Bochy has more at his disposal than Torey Lovullo does.
Yeah, I think Torey Lovullo is a really underrated manager, and what he's been able to do with that team this year has been incredible. And the way he's been able to galvanize them through the playoffs has been really, really fun to see. He's pulled all the right strings at the right moments, but it's Bruce Bochy. It's one of the best managers to ever manage, especially in in the postseason in clutch moments. Bruce Bochy he has that innate feel to pull the right strings that he needs to at any time, and it's not always the same string. If it's, hey, I'm gonna let, like, most people would have pulled Nathan Eovaldi before his last inning in the last start. I think he was at 80 something pitches or something, 82 I want to say, and most people would say, okay, you're done, we're gonna go to the bullpen. He let him go in there, and I think he faced Altuve, if I'm not mistaken, and he got Altuve, and then he was like, all right, well, that's when I'm going to do it. Basically sent him in there, didn't bring the new pitcher in to have to face Altuve, Tucker, and Jordan, right? Back to back to back that way, or Altuve, Bregman, Jordan, whatever it was. But he allowed Eovaldi to go out there and get that last big out kind of, and go from there. He just knows how to, in these key moments, make the right call, like 99% of the time. So I take that there. So what, Texas wins that, 4-1, I think is what it was, or 3-1. Anyways,
Yes,
I think that kind of shows which way we're leaning here. I think it's Rangers in 6 for my prediction here. I just think that Arizona will find a way to get a couple games here. A couple of these games will be close. I think a couple of them are just going to be bludgeonings by the Rangers. I think the offense, they showed the ability the last 2 games against Houston, that they can do that. Most of Arizona's games have been close games. They've had to battle through them. So I think it's Texas in 6. I wouldn't be surprised if it went 7. This Arizona team is scrappy, but I think I'm taking Rangers in 6. So what about you?
We just talked about how the Texas is the better team. I think that's pretty evident. But how many series would you say has the better team won in this postseason? 0? Maybe 1? Besides the wild card round, the longer series.
I think if you take Texas over Houston, because I think they were the better team. They lost on technicality. I think that's probably the one. But I mean, yeah, Texas beat Baltimore. Houston beat Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
They were the better team.
They were the better team. Yeah. The NL has been the technical worst team in every series.
Yeah.
So, and the NL teams seem to be battle tested, right? I mean, this Arizona team made it to the World Series, but I want to say the beating the Brewers curse, which if you beat the Brewers in the playoffs, you go to the World Series. That's the case for, I think, the last 10 teams that have beat the Brewers in the playoffs. They are, I think, they're like 5-5 or something in World Series. So like World Series winners, right? Most recent being the 2020 Dodgers, which won the World Series. So I'm going to say the Diamondbacks will not win this series. I've literally waffling on it because I think it's just the type of thing that would totally happen is we just sit here and talk about how great the Rangers are, and then the Diamondbacks go out and win the World Series. But I'm going to say the Rangers win their first World Series. I'm going to say they do it in 7 games. I'm going to say it's going to be like a Jordan Montgomery out of the bullpen to save it type of game in Game 7, where Texas scraps across enough runs. It's going to be one of those series that just, there's going to be some moments, there's going to be some tension, there's going to be some bat flips, there's going to be some huge home runs. And it's going to be whether or not Arizona can keep up with this Texas team. And I think we've kind of documented it's going to be really, really difficult for Arizona to be able to keep up. This is, this Texas offense is everything that Philly's offense isn't, right? It has that consistency and that power. I think the Rangers are going to get it done here and win that first World Series, avenge that 2011 loss, because I'm still thinking about that one, and I'm not even a Rangers fan.
Right. Yeah, I think it just, for everything you said there, I think Texas just is the better team here. We've seen the Diamondbacks have proven us all wrong before. I mean, I don't think we've picked them in any series this year outside of, I think I picked them in the wild card round, I want to say. But if there was going to be a team to do it, it was going to be the Diamondbacks. For what it's worth, Matt did also pick the Rangers in 6 games. So the queue here in a week or so, the Diamondbacks like tweeting us with our own graphic, like, are you sure about that? Because we're all picking the Rangers. But yeah, I think it's going to be a fantastic series. I think that for all it's worth, these two teams. I know we just broke it down saying 4-1 in favor of Texas. I think they're a lot closer than through most of those things. Like I think the starting pitching it leans Texas, but it's close. I think the offense, like Arizona has shown the ability to have offensive production, but it's not to the level of Texas's yet. So I think it's going to be a really fun series here. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes 7, but I also wouldn't be surprised if one of these teams just goes out and sweeps the other team. Like that's the type of year it's been too. So, but anyways, that's wrapping up our World Series predictions. So we all picked the Rangers in 6, or you picked them in 7.
I picked them in 7. Yeah,
in 7. So we're all picking that. But before we head out of here, anything that you want to wrap up on or you want to say?
I'm excited for the off season. I think it'll be a very exciting one. And in terms of the World Series, let's pay attention, because a lot of the complaints were, oh, no one's going to watch the Diamondbacks in the World Series. The Dallas market's maybe one of the 3 biggest markets in the country, maybe the 4 biggest markets in the country. So I think there will be plenty of viewers in the World Series, but let's all tune in anyway and chalk those numbers up a little bit.
Yeah, so what it's worth, every game of the World Series starts at 8:03 Eastern time or 5:03 Pacific time. So game 1 is Friday. They play Friday, Saturday, and then it goes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then game 6 and 7 would be next Friday and Saturday. So really weird that they obviously have to put it right in the middle of us not being able to record on any day without a game going on. So we'll have to figure that out. But yeah, so Friday, October 27th at 8:03 Eastern or 5:03 Pacific time. Tune in for game 1 of the World Series, and be sure to follow us at the Batflip Podcast. You see, if you're watching on YouTube, all of our social media handles are right there, and be on the lookout because we might potentially do a live stream game. We'll have to figure that one out. But thank you everyone for tuning into this episode of the Batflip Podcast, and we'll catch you guys whenever we figure that out.
Sounds good.